webinar. We have a high-level introduction to the We4F project, give you a sort of a call for innovations update as it currently stands, where we are in the process. And then we go on to get into the details of how to complete the full proposal application. We have attached a grant budget template for you to fill out, and we'll walk through how to quickly and fill it out and what the various worksheets mean in that template. And then we'll address a couple of pre-submitted questions and any live questions that we might have that we may have not covered. So without further ado, what are the goals for We4F? I think the primary one, they can be summed up into 4 main objectives. Right? The primary one is to increase food production through sustainable and efficient use of water or energy. We're also seeking to increase the income for the base of the pyramid, women and men who are in rural and urban areas, as well as looking to expand and scale innovative solutions around the We4F Nexus. As a general project, we're working to promote climate and environmental resilience, as well as biodiversity through a holistic management of the natural resources and the ecosystem. As you're well aware, we operate in 12 countries and are working to achieve the stated goals I have just mentioned. So what are we aiming to achieve with this call for innovations? At this stage, we're working toward between 15 to 20 innovators and disperse a combination of grants, technical assistance. Over and above that, we're working to help innovators as they run their businesses, integrate key environmental, social, and governance elements into their business models. As a project, we're looking to disperse between 40 to 200,000 US dollars, depending on the value and the need and the impact that the specific innovator or specific application will have on a project. With regards to the CFI process, we are currently in the full proposal application stage, where we are working to get all the shortlisted applicants to submit full proposals. And the next stage would obviously be to move towards the review of those proposals, and then the selected few that then make it through that process, then will go through an interview process, a video interview. From then we move on to the boot camp, and then we move on to development of work plans and other specific elements. The key thing to take away from this slide is the March 28th deadline, which is fast approaching and very well on its way. And I advise those who haven't started their application to do so and get cracking on the application. I'll pause here to introduce our technical assistance facilitator, Mashiri Jarimwa, who's an accomplished agricultural expert with experience working with smallholder farmers in South and Central Africa, and who's also a die-hard Arsenal fan. Mashiri, over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Evans, for that clear overview of the We4F program. And I must also thank you for that kind introduction, which sounds almost like a propaganda. So now I will take you through this full proposal application segment, and I will try to do so in a very slow manner so that you can all get the context and the content of this section, because I think it is very important. As my colleague has already introduced my name is Mashiri Jarimwa. I am the Technical Assistance Facilitator for the Southern and Central Africa Regional Innovation Hub, which is this hub that you are all connected to. So I will begin by giving you an overview of the full proposal application stage, which we are in right now. And at this stage, we are aiming to shortlist up to 30 applications that will move on to the interview stage. And at this stage as well, it is very critical for every applicant to note that to take rather this opportunity and provide as much in-depth information as possible when you're explaining your innovation, your company, your organization, and your expansion plans. Because we've seen from the concept note stage that some of the applications were quite brief. They couldn't provide in-depth information. But I want to reiterate here that this is your opportunity to really share in-depth information about your organization and your innovation, so that the reviewers will be able to get a full and clear picture of what your innovation can actually achieve and its intended impacts. During this stage, you will also be provided with a tentative budget template that you'll be able to populate. And you will also be required to provide 3 past performance referees from your past work. In this stage as well, the full application will include specific questions that are tailored to the 3 main themes of the of environment, social, and governance, or ESG components, as we call them, because the environmental sustainability and gender components are very important to our program. And please also note that we will also enlist the services of our experienced external evaluators, or reviewers rather, who are part of the regional advisory board, to help us with the review process. So you would realize that the full proposal application stage is categorized into 3 segments: the innovation viability, which is weighted at 35%, the commercial or financial viability, which is weighted at 30%, the sustainability and social governance components, which are weighted at 35%. And in all this, as you fill in these sections, I once more reiterate that please provide very clear and detailed information about it could be about your innovation, about your organization, your expansion strategies, your growth plans, your customers, and etc., etc. Make it as clear and as concise as possible to make sure that you can tell your story to the reviewer and really show the impact that your innovation or your organization actually could have. So here we're providing you with a sample question, how the questions will be looking like on the SM Apply platform, where you will be applying from. So you will realize that there will be a primary question that will have sub-questions, and these sub-questions would help you as cues, so that you can be able to cover all the relevant aspects that will again enable the reviewers to fully understand what your business model is all about. And again, I really want to reiterate here that please make sure that you respond to all questions. Do not leave any question unanswered. If at all you feel that this question is not relevant or does not apply to our innovation, please clarify that in the provided space and provide the reason as to why you think this question is not relevant to your innovation, but do not leave empty spaces. Make sure that you just clarify why you think this is not relevant by providing a reason or a rationale for that basis. And also ensure that you clearly elaborate on the gender and base of pyramid impact that your innovation currently targets. And if it happens that maybe you currently do not have that within your business model, it is still okay. What is important is for you to then say it out and say the plans that you have to mitigate against that. And as a hub through the technical assistance unit, we will then be able to help you to achieve some of these goals and embed them in your business model. So you will realize that the budget allows you as well to include such initiatives to enhance positive impacts on women, on the base of the pyramid population, and the environment at large. So just to give a context as to how you will be filling in or populating your application. So it is very important for you to understand that your story, how you tell your story about your innovation really is very important, because it helps the reviewer to understand how your innovation fits perfectly within the water, energy, food nexus. So as you do that, remember that always what is important is the end user of your innovation. So your end user, as an innovator yourself, you could be reaching your end user either through direct sales, where you sell directly to maybe farmers or some of these BOP customers. In which case, then if you sell directly, it then means your customers are also your end users. But you could also maybe providing your innovation through some distributors or other intermediaries, in which case you still have to focus on the end users in this, that could be farmers and other BOP demographics. Or you could be running a B2B innovation where you sell your innovation through another business, and that business then reaches out to the farmers and the end users. Or it could be through a micro enterprise that directly is using the WIFOF innovation. So in all these cases or all these scenarios, just remember that the farmers and the BOP demographic are our intended end users. Therefore, it is very important as you bring out your story to make sure that you align it to these end users, the farmers and the BOP demographics. Now, as to how you will be able to estimate or to calculate some of your targets as you populate your application, we realized during the concept note stage that some of the applications could not quite understand how to estimate or to calculate end users and the like. So I will give you a very simple example. If your innovation, for example, reaches out to 100 households in South Africa, for example, the number of end users, therefore, that your innovation reaches out to will be that 100 households multiply the average family size in the country. So if it was in South Africa, for example, it would be 100 households for my innovation multiplied by 4, which is the average family size in South Africa. But obviously, this number will vary from country to country. So just make sure that you use an average for your country and multiply that by the number of households or by the number of customers that your innovation reaches. And that's how you get to the intended end user figure. Because we realized during the concept note stage that this part was a little bit confusing to some of the applicants. And as you do that as well, make sure that the estimated income for your end users, the farmers, is actually for the life of the project. It's not just for 1 year, but it's for the life of the project or the estimated project period. So it is important that you make those estimates that maybe your innovation will have to your intended end users as part of the life of the project. I think I would also reiterate that as you design your targets, make sure that they are gender disaggregated, and also, just as I've highlighted already, that you estimate this for the life of the project from 2022 to 2024. And I cannot reiterate enough that in all your in all this process, be realistic. Make sure that you use realistic estimates, be it for your target and for your performance, because again, we've realized during the concept note stage that there are some figures and targets that were given that you could just tell that this is not realistic, or at least this was not arrived at after following a logical process. So just make sure that you are as realistic as you can be when you are drafting these. I will now touch on the environmental sustainability component, which is very key to our program. We intend that all our innovations and the companies we work with embed environmental sustainability into their business models. So one of the goals of our program is to really have an understanding, even as we start the program, of both the positive and negative impacts of your innovation on climate and the environment. And we've again realized that during the concept note stage, for example, some applications had the temptation to only mention the positives and not mention the negative impacts of your innovation. It does not mean that if you mention the negative impacts of your innovation, then it means you are not qualifying. But what is important is to say, these are the positives, these are the negatives, and this is the plan that we've put in place to make sure that we mitigate against these negative impacts. And again, as the technical assistance unit, we will be able to support you and to help you to make sure that you develop plans that mitigate against these negative impacts. So don't restrain yourself by only focusing on the positives and think that if you mention the negatives, then maybe it won't give a good outlook on your innovation. Actually, what is important to us is to say, what are the plans that you have put in place or that you want us to help support you to put in place so that you can mitigate against those negative impacts. And so you again see that the budget template will allow you to factor that those mitigation measures in as you develop your budget. And I will strongly recommend you to follow the link on this slide and watch this webinar session that really explains a lot about the environmental sustainability and what to expect and how we will also be helping you to achieve that. So please take time and follow this link and watch this video for you to be able to understand better the environmental sustainability component. I will quickly touch on the do's or what you're expected to do as you complete your full applications or proposals. Please make sure that you write with clarity and with relevance. Be sure that every time before you respond to a question, read it carefully, review the question carefully, and provide only clear and relevant information. Do not waste your time providing information that is not relevant. It may be a nice piece of information, but if it's not relevant to that question, just make sure that you reserve it. And also be as precise as possible, especially when you detail how your model works in as far as your expansion and your vision are concerned. We will also require that you provide really clear responses regarding your expansion plan and strategy. And please make sure that you clearly demonstrate through your application how your innovation fits within the energy, water, food nexus. Again, I said how you tell your story is really important, because you might have a very interesting innovation, but if you can't tell succinctly how it actually fits within the water, energy, food nexus, the reviewer may not be able to comprehend the impact that your innovation might have. So make sure that you clearly demonstrate that in your application. And as it relates to commercial sustainability of your innovation or your product, make sure again that the most important person or target is the end user. How are they going to be able to access your innovation, and what plans do you have in place for scale and for growth? I will continue with what we expect to see with the in your applications as well. I cannot say this enough that you need to be elaborate, provide as much information as possible, paint a clear picture to the reviewer. This is an opportunity for you. As Evans has already said, we started with 400. Now we are with this smaller group. So it's a great opportunity for you now to really express how your innovation works and how your business model works and the like, and make sure that you also clearly demonstrate the strength of the partnerships that you might be forming as you try to expand your innovation. And with the expansion of your innovation also comes the need for you to demonstrate your understanding of the political and regulatory context as it relates to those areas or those regions or those countries in which you intend to scale into, or to the new market you intend to scale your innovation into. So clearly demonstrate your understanding of the political and regulatory context, and also demonstrate to the reviewer with specific details the actions and the plans that you have for environmental sustainability and for gender, how your business model actually fits this or embeds these key components into the business model and supply chains. Be as real as you can be. Be realistic in all your targets, in all your figures. Do not throw figures out of nowhere. Make sure that you provide tangible evidence as well in terms of figures and numbers wherever possible to back up your story. I will quickly just highlight some of the things that we do not expect to see in your full application or proposals. Do not generalize. Don't just provide like a broad overview of, it could be your expansion plan or your business model. Be precise, provide relevant details, and do not be over-ambitious and unrealistic again. Make sure that as when you talk about your sales or your commercial growth, the ESG components and the like, you are as real as possible, because that's what will enable the reviewer to also imagine what your innovation could actually achieve. And please note that the We4F program is not a traditional program. And by that, I mean the We4F program targets those innovations that already are at a stage where they are ready to scale. So it's not a program for good ideas that have not been implemented and you have not made any sales. You just have this good innovation that has not yet been tested, but it is really a program for those innovations that are ready to scale. And the reason why you all are here is because we thought from the concept notes that you submitted, we thought that you're actually at that stage and your innovations were quite fitting. And also make sure that wherever you can and wherever possible, you provide links or attachments or any supporting documents really to back up your story. And I will pause a little bit here and say this slowly, because probably this is the most important part of this whole webinar. Please do not leave this application to the last minute. If you haven't started already, I encourage you to start today. Do not leave this process to the last minutes. We have seen this from the concept note stage that you might think that, oh, I'm gonna complete this application towards the deadline. But the experience that we've had is that it is always beneficial to submit as soon as possible. Do not leave this to the last minute. So please, to those who have started already, great job, you're doing very well. Thank you very much. And to those who haven't, please get on with it already. So I will pause here for now and hand over to my colleague, Gabriela Makonese, who is our hotshot grants and finance specialist. She will take you through the grant budget details preparation. Over to you, Gabriela.
Thank you, Mashiri, for that introduction and your stellar presentation. All right, I hope everyone can hear me. So we'll just be going through the grant budget details template and walking you through how to both access it and complete it. Okay, so this is just an overview of the template, which is accessible to you on SM Apply. So SM Apply is the system where you are completing your application at the present moment. So when you go to the budget section, you'll be able to see there's a link provided for you to be able to download this template. So on the first sheet of the budget template is a guidance that's prepared for you to be able to read and go through to understand what is required of you. The second sheet is the action required. This is the only sheet where you will have to input anything in your budget. You will not be requested to edit any other sheet besides the milestone cost details sheet. The rest are just guidance for you. And then there's an example of the milestone cost detail, what we're expecting to see from you, a general guidance. And then next to that, you have the budget summary, which is auto-filled with the details that you'll be putting into the milestone cost details. And then again, you have the milestone budget, which is another summary that is also auto-filled from the information you would have put into the milestone cost budget. So before you send us an email, which we definitely welcome, just go through the information that's provided for you to see if you understand. Then if you encounter any other problems as you complete your budget, I would encourage you to take a screenshot and then pop us an email so we can promptly assist you. And as Mashiri said, try not to leave this to the last minute, so that you give us enough time to respond to you, which we will do promptly. But then it will also give you enough time to then go back and action the guidance that you've received. And so you can review and email us again and so forth. So we are here to support you. Just make sure that you give yourself and us enough time to allow for that. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so in the first sheet, which we've gone over the first time, is the guidance on preparing the budget. So I would encourage you to go through this. We're going to go through some of this detail again in another slide for me to highlight, but this is what I just wanted to show you what it looks like. This will be able to allow you to see what is, or remind you rather, what is allowable and then what should be in your budget and so forth. Speaking to which, I would encourage you as well, if you have forgotten some of the detail that is in the call for innovation document or the CFI document, then I would encourage you to go back and read it again, because it has been a bit of time since you submitted your initial concept note. You would have then read the CFI document to better understand how you should be applying and the sort of questions you are responding to. So I would encourage you to go back to the CFI. You go to the section that says full application. Then that's another way for you to sort of see the questions without going to SM Apply. Then you adequately prepare, and you'll be able to get a general guidance of what we're expecting from you. It's just a good refresher since it's been some time. Okay, now moving back onto the presentation. Under the milestone cost detail, this is a reminder, the sheet that you will be requested to fill in. You'll be filling in the areas that are in gray. So please do not edit any of the information that's in blue. Just only fill in what's been marked out for you in gray. This is the only tab, I repeat, that you'll be requested to fill into the budget. The rest is just support for you. You'll also be requested to please fill in the description of each milestone, right? So if on this sheet, you need to scroll down and see if there's anything else at the bottom. Don't just stop here, scroll down and see, and then fill in all the information that is relevant to you. So maybe you don't have some of the expenses here. For example, let's say you do not have a cost allocated towards towards travel and transport. That's there by B. You don't have to fill in the data. You can just leave it blank. Please do not delete any single cell, even if it's non-applicable to you. Just rather leave it blank. Don't delete it, because in the auto-filled sheet is where the formulas will then pull into. So don't delete anything. If it's non-applicable, just leave it blank. If you're stuck and you don't know, take a screenshot and pop us an email. Okay, now we're continuing on the same sheet. We haven't moved on to a different sheet. We're still on the same sheet. As I've said, it has a number of milestones on it, so just scroll down and you will see them. Please do not delete anything, I repeat again. And then on the column that says budget notes, Evans, if you can just scroll there with the cursor. On the column that just says budget notes, please ensure that you fill that in. So you are putting in, just if you've done this before, I guess you would be familiar with the, if you've applied for funding before, you'd be familiar with the process. You need to show what the cost is associated to. You make justifications for it, and you also need to put down the objective of the cost. There should be a rationale as to why you are costing every single cost that is on the budget. And again, we've put an example of this for you. Next slide, please. Okay, so here's the example that I just alluded to. So this is the spreadsheet with the example of a milestone cost, of the milestone cost details that has been pre-populated as an example. You do not necessarily need to copy and paste the same expenses. It will be different for you. The line items might be different or even non-applicable, as I've said. You just move on to the next one and you leave that one. So you provide a justification as to why this cost is necessary for your project. On the sheet will also be some pre-filled information on the template. So just take it as a guidance more than anything else. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so this is the first auto-filled sheet that you will come into contact with on the spreadsheet. So this is just a summary of the data that you would have inputted into the milestone cost details. So this is a nice overview to see how your costs are spread across, so that if you want to change the weight and so forth, that you know exactly where to go. This is a nice tool for you to use as well, to just go back to when you think you're done with your budget, just go back and see how it looks from this perspective. Go back and make any adjustments that you need to make. Please, this is auto-filled and it's also password protected, so please do not delete it when you are resubmitting your budget. We also need to see this data. Then the last sheet will be the budget template. Milestone budget, which is also auto-filled. It's another perspective with just different cells for you to see. But what is perhaps what would be more interesting for you to see is the bottom there where it says verification. So that's more the weighting of your costs. So please use this tool to inform you before you send it to us. If it says, for example, value, you know, the capital letters values with the exclamation marks, then you know that you've deleted something. So just undo, go through all the sheets. This is a tool for you to sort of quality check your work, see how the costs are being weighed across the time period of your project, and then send it to us when you're done. But this is a nice tool for you to use to see the weight of your costs and see if there's anywhere where you would like to make amendments, and we will use it as well. So please, I would like to reiterate that please do not delete any of the sheets. Okay, so we'll go now through the guidance on the grant budget preparations. These are also in the first sheet of your budget, just as a gentle reminder to you. So you are encouraged to include details of planned match funding. So match funding will be discussed with you on a case-by-case basis. Should you make it past this stage, nearer to the time of the award. And when we refer to match funding, we are referring to cash from you or non-cash resources that you'll be using or assigning towards financing of the project together with the grant funding. So for example, if you are requesting $50,000 from us and you are then allocating $10,000, then the total cost of the project will actually be $60,000. So grant funds cannot be used for capital expenditure valued at 5,000 or more per unit. I'd like to repeat that. So it's 5,000 more per unit. So this means per unit of your capital expenditure can be 4,500 by 5, right? So that's times 5. That is allowable as long as the unit cost is less than 5,000 rands. So as you're working through your budget and you're still not sure about this, take a screenshot and then send us an email. I'd really encourage you to do that and not to wait until the last day, so that we can help you clarify anything with you and so forth. Okay, and then grant funds cannot be used to purchase any equipment or item produced in China. And this is guided by the regulations. So next slide, please. Okay, so of the supporting documents you are required to complete. As you know, if you've started completing, there are supporting documents on the application that are actually rather optional. These are the ones that are not optional. You must submit them with your application. So you'll need to submit a certificate of incorporation and or your business registration in one of the 12 countries that we are targeting. And Evans alluded to that earlier. So we'll need a certificate of incorporation of your business to be sent, as well as your non-government entity certification. You'll provide this on your company letterhead. It's just a simple one-liner to say that my organization, whatever the name is not owned or controlled in total or in any part by any entity of government. Signed by the person with the authority to sign in your organization. Perfect, even better if you have a stamp as well. Then you just send that to us just on your company letterhead. We will also need a list of key personnel, and key personnel alludes to those individuals who have access, control, and influence over the management and finance of the company. So that is not including everyone in the organization, just the individuals who you would define as having access to control and influence over the management and finance of the company. That's usually executive roles like managing director, the director, deputy director, CFOs, and so forth. We'll also need the detailed grant budget along with the budget narrative. So we've gone through what the template looks like, and we've also gone through what the example looks like and the sort of information that's expected from you from that point.
Thanks so much, Gabriela. I think you gave a very stellar presentation and clearly delineated and asked, showed us how we can simply and quickly go through the budget template. And grateful for your insights, Mashiri, on the actual feeling of the document itself. So in preparation for this webinar, we received a number of questions from yourselves and a number of individuals as well, from our colleagues and other applicants as well. And we have compiled these and want to share them with you. So we group them according to themes, and we sort of put central themes together and then are sharing these with you. So I think a number of these are technical questions and the other are more process related. So we'll start off by asking a question maybe that's best suited for Mashiri. So Mashiri, do you have is there a different format for the full application document? Maybe you can shed some light on that question.
Thank you, Ivan. So the direct answer to your question is no. We will only accept applications received on the SM Apply platform and also submitted by 4 p.m. Central African time on the 20th of March, 2022, which is our deadline for the full proposal submission.
Thanks for that. A follow-up question. Do we need to list technical assistance partners to include in our submission?
No, not at all. The hub will work to procure in-house and external service providers to deliver that technical assistance for you.
And thanks for that clarification. I think this was a key point of contention as people were trying to figure out how to complete the actual full application. So moving on to maybe small process-related questions, and some more directed to Gabriela. How do you determine the minimum matching funds that are required, Gabriela?
There is no minimum grant match amount that's specified at this moment. We will speak with the individuals on a case-by-case basis, as I mentioned, closer to the time of award, and will then be also expecting some proof of that.
Thanks for that. Are there any restrictions on the percentage of funds that can be received by a sub-awardee or someone in the consortium? And again, what's the distinction between a sub-awardee and a partner in the application or a consortium?
Okay, so the lead applicant, it would be good to remember that if they're lead, then they should lead across. So they will be our main point of contact. And they would also be needing to receive the majority of the funding. So which means the sub-awardee can receive no more than 49.9%, as opposed to the lead applicant. So that's the only institution, if I can put it that way, that the hub will be communicating to regarding the project.
Thanks so much for that, Gabriela. And then another question we received speaks to the number of people we received. How many people have been invited for this round, and how many winners do we expect?
Okay, so 64 applicants are now in the semi-finalist stage, and we're expecting our final cohort to be made up with awardees or grantees ranging from 15 to 20. But of course, we reserve the right to make an adjustment to this number based on the evaluations of the applications that we would have received.
Great. Can the total budget indication in the full proposal differ from the concept note application?
Yes, but this would need to be indicated in the budget narrative to give justification or reason for the discrepancy.
Okay. And do we need to keep the project duration for each application to 3 years?
No, this is not necessary. This is just the maximum duration. Applicants are encouraged to edit the budget template to suit their project scope in terms of the project timeline. But of course, I would like to reiterate again that we would not be changing any other categories. You would leave them blank if they're non-applicable to you.
Fantastic. I think we received a number of questions in the chat, and I've tried my best to answer some of those as they were coming up as we were discussing. I think one of the, maybe I'll go through those that I've answered by chat. That's fine. Maybe if you'll allow me, I'll go through them as we review and go through the process. So I think the first one was that to what extent and the hope, I'll read it as verbatim as I can. Please, for those of us who are going to develop our activities in French-speaking countries like the Central African Republic and the DRC and Chad, can we have translation, because the meeting is really technical. It is true that we may also manage with English, but this means that we can submit the complete form in English. So in response to your question, I think I'm certain we are accepting applications in French, and we particularly from those specific countries, the Central African Republic, DRC, and Chad. And because of that, it's unfortunate that at this stage we're unable to organize translation services at present. But it's something that we'll look into, and we'll see how we can mitigate as we move forward in the process. We do have French-speaking reviewers who are lined up to review the documents once the documents are complete. And I've also my apologies to you, Joseph, for that. We'll see what we can do to address that issue. If I can answer a specific question around the date of submission. Okay, so I think this is a question we've also received around the date of submission. The current date of submission as it currently stands is the 28th of March. This date is set largely because of the other sort of timelines that we have set up on our end. And at this point, this date is set at 28th of March. My sincere plea to you is to try and get as much of this work done and start on this presentation as quickly as you can, and start on it now because it's quite involved and technical. So that's that. Let me see. I think that's a question from Dixon and from Kyle.
Evans, there's a question around. Hold on. I think there's one on top of that that we didn't address as we're going down. Okay, because it's a repeat question. We manufacture product in Zimbabwe, but many of our parts come from China. How is this viewed by the selection process? So as we said, and we'd like to reiterate this, the grant funding cannot be used for purchases of any equipment or items produced in China. This is just part of USAID regulation, so there is no way around this, and we cannot make an exception around this. I think this would be a good time to look for alternatives. You can even consider local alternatives, I think.
Okay, so in my mind, this is, I guess every situation is different, and Gabriela is spot on in what she's saying. We cannot use grant funding to purchase any material from China. That is an immovable. We can't change that. But I think it's up to the innovator to think about what creative ways in terms of putting together donor funding from other organizations, if there's such a thing, their own funding. But what we are certain of is that our US no resources that are from these grant funds can be used and directed towards the purchase of any products from China. Okay.
Okay, and then there are other questions around the deadline. Two questions around the deadline. That the concern is that the 28th of March is a quick turnaround for coordinating with partners. So I would encourage you, I saw in the concept note stage, only a few applicants used the function of SM apply to apply with partners or with collaborators, as the system says. So you will need to go on SM apply and invite others within your organization to work on the application with you. It's definitely possible to meet the deadline, especially if you work with other people to complete the application. So I would encourage you to utilize that function, to ask somebody to review your work, ask somebody to co-author the application with you. That would be a great tip that I'd like to share with you. Thanks.
Thanks for that, Gabriela. I think there's another question. And if a solar water pump is manufactured in China but distributed in Zambia, it cannot be proposed for this grant. Remember, we have a range of services that we provide under this program. It's not just grant funding that we provide. We can provide support towards the, again, I'll reiterate, we cannot purchase any goods from China using grant funding. But the program can provide technical assistance that you can use and that your business might need to grow and expand, that speaks to specific elements to your growth and your expansion and the scaling of the activity. So again, my questions around really, how do you think creatively within this limitation to make it work in a way that is feasible? Okay. I see there's a question about what about Portuguese? So at this stage, we're not accepting applications in Portuguese. Should that change, we'll definitely let whether we're doing CFI 2 or another CFI, we'll look into that and we'll definitely let everybody know, particularly with a focus on Portuguese-speaking countries. Okay, there's another question here. Are quotes required to be attached for this full application? Gabriela, any thoughts?
Sorry about that. I was struggling to unmute. No, so we don't need any quotes at this stage. Thank you.
Thanks, Gabriela. We have a question from Anna Marie. She says, I don't understand the limit of 5,000 on capital expenditure. Our cheapest aquaponics production system, which is the project I would like to roll out, will cost 33,000. How can I handle this? Again, it speaks to the element that I mentioned earlier. We in addition to grant funding, we provide technical assistance and support towards investment facilitation as part of the technical assistance that we can go. So in the event that for whatever reason you feel that you are not able to access the grant funding itself, we can provide technical assistance to help you. Should you be successful as a project and you're chosen as one of the finalists, we can help access and find investors, work with a brokering unit to make sure that you get this sort of investment support to make sure that you get the necessary buy-in and input into that. So I would like to sort of let all the applicants know that grant funding is only one component of the skill of the tools that we have available to support and expand We4F projects in the as we roll out this project. Okay, a question from Catherine Milling. Okay, a part of my budget would be a design engineer to help us build our innovation. I haven't been able to get a full budget or quotation yet due to this quick turnaround for my submission. So my question is, is it okay if budget items change slightly or if I get different codes later on? Gabriela,
yeah, so we would, I think you would need to maybe speak to the suppliers and ask for a quicker turnaround time. You will not be able to amend the budget after this stage. I'm not sure if you're referring to after you've been awarded, but after that stage, you definitely won't be able to make any amendments to the contract amount. Thanks.
Thanks, Gabriela.
Just one more line. I see a lot of the questions that are being asked have actually been addressed in the CFI document. So I think that's why when I initially started my presentation, I encouraged everyone to go back to the document and to check, just to get a refresher of some of the rules and the regulations, the limits and so forth, so you know that you are responding within some of the rules and the guidance that we've provided. Thanks.
Thanks for that, Gabriela. Okay. Would you please send presentations by email? Yes, we'll work on sending presentations to you headed by email. I think the idea is that we will either put this on YouTube by the end of the week and we'll share this presentation as well. Are you providing a template for the environmental mitigation and monitoring plan, the EMMP? I believe we should be doing so, and we'll get that done once this, if it's not part of the CFI document as it currently stands, it should be something that we'll be attaching to that document. Is packaging considered a capital cost? So I think now we're getting into the details of specific applications, and it gets very tricky for us as for me to give you a very informed answer with just this without having the context of a full conversation. So I would rather you, my recommendation to you with regards to this is either you ask us in an email with giving us complete details so we can give you a sort of clearer guidance. But again, bearing in mind that we are limited in our responses in that we are not allowed to sort of guide or give additional information to other applicants, excluding others. So questions that speak to the specifics of a specific application start running afoul of our procurement regulations. So we need to walk a very tight line about that. So Dale, unfortunately, without further context, I can't provide this answer. and I might not even be allowed to if I get into the details, because I'll give you an unfair advantage over other applicants. Okay. Linda asks, are we able to view the concept document which we first submitted? I want to, Gabriela, you want to take that, or Mashiri? Gabriela, if you're speaking, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. If I got it right, can they view their concept note?
Are we able to view the concept note document which we first submitted?
No, not at this stage. SM Apply does not have that functionality.
Okay. A question from Moira says, the new rule about procurement from China was not part of the original core terms. How do you explain in view of this tight deadline? So the question with regards to procurement from China, this is a rule that we can't bend. I think it's something that we it's one of those things that's how the program is aligned and how it's structured and set up because of the funding that we've received. A question from Daniel. You mentioned that grant funding used by sub-awardees cannot exceed 49%. Can you confirm that this implies that the prime applicant will be the majority of the budget being at least 51%? A question for you, Gabriela.
Yes, that's correct. That's the correct calculation. Thanks.
What is the expected starting date for the project in terms of implementation and eligible expenditure? Our activities are seasonally sensitive. Thanks for that, Gerrit. I think we are working on a timeline to ensure that we get this process wrapped up by the middle of the year. So hopefully end of June, early June, hopefully if everything goes according to plan, that's when we start rolling out the project. That's how we still have some way to go in terms of reviewing and making sure that this process is finalized and ready for our onboarding of our innovators. Okay. Are there any questions I've missed? Let me see.
Yes, Evans, I see here. Martin, I'd like to take that back. So Martin has confirmed that he's been able to download the document, his concept note document on SM Apply. So if everyone on this platform should have, a user ID that you should be able to, thanks for reminding me of that, you should be able to use the user ID to log in and then proceed towards the full application. If you don't recall it or you hadn't noted it down, and maybe you didn't auto-save, right? So you will need to write back to us and let us know so that we can promptly assist you. But please just try and log in between today and tomorrow to see if you can access the full application so that we can assist you. Thanks.
And I think even there's one that I see from Catherine about, so she says, sorry if I missed, but do you have a grading scale of how applications are scored? And I'll quickly just take this and say, Catherine, so all the applications will be scored on 3 categories. The first one being the innovation viability, which will be which will have a weighting of 35%. They'll also be scored on the second category, which is the commercial or financial viability, weighted at 30%. And lastly, on the environmental, social, and governance component, which is weighted at 35%. So it's those 3 broad categories through which your applications will be reviewed with those specific weightings. And thank you, Evans, for pulling up the slide.
No worries, absolutely. Okay. Can the link to the video be reshared? I think that will be done. I think we can reshare the link, Judith. folks from a fantastic group. Applicants, yes, we accept applicants authorized to use French. So applications, we will accept applications in French. So please feel free to respond, to reply to the questions in French. Did I? Okay. Are there any questions I may have missed, team?
I think you've covered pretty much all the questions, and if there's any questions that we missed, again, as probably as Gabriela said, feel free to reach out, and then you probably if it hasn't been answered already, then you can get some response via email. But I think we've covered everything.
Thanks for that, Mashid. I think the form for the budget is already in the full application, so you need to go. Just one more question I just saw now. Form for the budget details are going to be shared with. This presentation is going to be available online by the end of the week, and we'll work to see that you get access to these presentations as well as we get towards the end. Okay. I realized that we're 5 minutes over our allotted hour, and was very, very excited and grateful to have you join us on this process and on this journey. For those that haven't started their applications, I encourage you and reiterate to you, please get on that application process now and start filling it out so that we can meet our deadline for the 28th of March. We're super excited to get you guys on board to start working with you and get it finalized. Without further ado, I'd like to thank you for joining this call. If there are any further questions that you might have, please feel free to reach out to us via our WIH. I'm going to pull up the email address via this email address here, and we'll gladly get back to you within this allotted time. Very grateful for your participation, and thank you so much. Colleagues, any final words?
From me, it's also just to say thank you and really to encourage you to get on with your application. I think we get your concern about the deadline, but I think take motivation from the fact that you are the few that have made it already to this stage, which clearly means that there is something in your innovation. So if that could motivate you to just make sure that you go through the application process and submit as soon as you can. Otherwise, thank you very much for joining this call.
All right. Okay then. Bye-bye.